Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We are going to be checking out facts about Paris catacombs, guys, from the original channel, Weird History. Go check it out. Links down below. Jumping into it right now.
Paris is one of the world's most iconic and beautiful cities. It is a favorite tourist destination from around the world. But the romantic City of Lights also hides a dark secret. The city's underground catacombs, which are home to the skeletal remains of more than 6 million people. Not exactly the thing you want to hear before booking your flight.
Yeah, it's really crazy that, there's thousands, I think, thousands and thousands of bones just under Paris. It's an unsettling thought. I don't know what part of Paris it is, if it's just like the downtown, like the main section, or if it's an extended amount. I don't know. It'll probably go into it.
So, today on Weird History, we're exploring the creepy ossuaries beneath Paris and their unconventional history. But before we dig into that, first be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel and let us know in the comments below what other creepy locations you would like to hear about.
All right, let's do it.
Now, no reason to get catty. We're just talking catacombs. 200 miles of underground tunnels crammed full of human skeletons sounds like something out of medieval times. That's the sort of thing you build in an era called the Dark Ages. But in fact, these tunnels were first converted into final resting places for the city's dead in the late 18th century, in an attempt to rid the city of rapidly overflowing cemeteries. I thought it
was like because of the Black Plague or something is when it started, but if they're saying 18th century, that was the 1700s, that was well after the Black Plague.
It had served as a network of mines and quarries, built during the Middle Ages to reach the rich limestone deposits beneath the city. Okay. These stones were then used to erect many of Paris's most famous and iconic buildings.
And that's the thing, too. It's like irrelevant to the video, but you keep digging holes underground and then putting the stuff on top of the ground. You get sinkholes and everything else. But I guess one way to prevent sinkholes is fill the empty spot with human skulls. There you go.
Most of the mines were constructed by individuals without any kind of formal training or even permission, and many were never clearly mapped or identified, which made occasional cave-ins and collapses an ongoing problem.
Yeah.
Due to the stable temperatures and humidity levels underground, from the 17th through the early 20th centuries, the mine shafts also housed several breweries. A number of extensions to the original cave network were even dug specifically for this purpose, allowing brewers to work underground and then easily transport their product to wait for customers above. This was not a one-off concept, but a thriving business. By the late 1800s...
I don't know how you pronounce it. That's Belgian ale, and you can get it here in the United States, and it is great. It's amazing. Now, if you're in Belgium, people say that it's just run-of-the-mill beer. It's nothing special, but for what you can get here, it's pretty decent.
Not a one-off concept, but a thriving business. By the late 1800s, underground breweries in just the 14th arrondissement alone were producing more than 22 million gallons of beer each year. The longest-lasting and most famous of these brewers were known as Dumesnil and remained in operation through the 1960s. The tunnels also once housed a number of mushroom farms. A specific type of button mushroom, the champignon de Paris, became specifically associated with the catacombs. The construction of the Paris Metro in the early 1900s ultimately forced growers to move their operations elsewhere. In the mid-1700s, many of the city's largest grave sites, such as the Holy Innocents Cemetery along the Rue Saint-Denis, were becoming unsanitary due to the sheer number of corpses interred there, frequently in mass graves dating back centuries. Heavy rain.
So they just piled them. Do they not bury it? Like, that looked like an open pit. Was it just an open pit? They would just toss the people in, or did they just dig it up every time? Let me know how that went, guys. What is up with these mass graves? Did they dump like 40 people in at a time? One at a time situation, open pit style? I don't know.
Drains and basement wall collapses in 1780 made holy innocents essentially unusable, not to mention a public health and safety hazard, demanding some urgent new solution.
But it was gross.
The underground mines, which were already being retrofitted and consolidated in order to deal with the frequent street and home collapses, seemed like the perfect place to cram all the extra bodies. By 1786, corpses were being exhumed nightly from cemeteries across the city and moved.
Hold on.
Corpses like the perfect place to cram all the extra bodies. By 1786, corpses were being exhumed nightly from cemeteries across the city and moved underground into the catacombs. Each night, covered wagons would remove bodies from nearby graves and deposit them in a mine shaft leading down into the tunnels near the Rue de la Tombe Pissoire. The total process of clearing the city's most overcrowded burial sites and moving bodies into the catacombs took around 12 years. Even though the term catacombs technically only refers to the part that has all the dead bodies in it, it's now routinely used to refer to the entire network of mines and tunnels.
Okay. So late 1700s, it took them 12 years. They just decided just take all the bodies and put them down there. So the bodies have been saved up since medieval times, I guess, right? The Dark Ages, Middle Ages, whatever, in the cemeteries. And it just, it kind of makes you wonder, like, wow, there's a lot of people that has died in the past. Of course, I mean, you go back 130 years, boom, pretty much from there farther back, no one's alive today from then, right? So every single person that's ever been alive and died, their bodies are somewhere. I mean, maybe decomposed. Some of them, of course, have been burnt, but still, it's a weird thought. Death is a weird thought. Sightseers and looky-loos.
Though it hadn't been their primary purpose, it wasn't long after the underground ossuaries were completed that it became clear the public would have some kind of dark interest in checking out these grim subterranean hiding spots.
Well, yeah.
Among the first ever visitors to the Paris catacombs was the future King Charles X, back when he was still known as the Count of Artois. In 1787, he actually organized a picnic down in the catacombs with some of his courtiers and friends.
Hey, why not?
By 1809, the catacombs were occasionally opened up for individuals to explore, but only for important or prominent French citizens, and by appointment. At this point, they were still just a large, disorganized dumping ground for dead bodies that had been removed from Paris graveyards. Between 1810 and 1814, French politician and engineer Louis-Étienne Héricard de Thury decided to do something about it and began arranging the bones into patterns, murals, and collages. He specifically intended to honor the victims of the September massacres, incidents of public violence that occurred during the French Revolution.
Yeah, so he's the one that made it into an art thing, which is kind of the creepy part about it. I mean, it's already creepy enough. You got hundreds of thousands, a couple 100,000 bodies or whatever they said it was. But when you go down there and they're decorated, it looks like a shrine. It makes it look way more creepy, guys. What do you think? I mean, that's how I feel about it.
In all, Thury's designs incorporated around 1,200 skeletons out of a collection of several million. The list of important historical icons and royals who toured the site included German statesman Otto von Bismarck, Austria's Emperor Francis I, Sweden's Crown Prince Oscar, and Napoleon III. It wasn't
3 million skeletons, it said. Holy. Earlier it said a couple 100,000. 3 million? That's a lot. Quite a lot. What does it say here? Reservoirs des Elks de Lavon. I know I did not pronounce that right. I can't read that. That's all in French. If somebody wants to translate that for us and put in the comments, that'd be cool. Something about 1868, though. I understand what that part is.
Until 1874 that a relatively small section of the tunnels were opened to the general public as a museum and tourist attraction.
Okay.
Tourists exploring the catacombs definitely want to stick with the well-traversed areas and large groups, as it's quite easy to get lost down there. In 1793, a porter from the Val-de-Grâce Hospital, named Philibert Asparot, entered the catacombs via a staircase in the hospital courtyard for reasons unknown, and was never heard from again. His decayed remains were discovered 11 years later in a quarry gallery very close to an exit. He'd nearly made it. He was interred on the spot where his body was found, with a small tombstone noting the peculiar circumstances of his death. That part of the catacombs, near the Boulevard Saint-Michel, isn't open to the public anymore. Sorry. Many visitors to the catacombs routinely wander down there on their own, as opposed to with a formal tour group. These renegade individuals, known as cataphiles, access the tunnel via former sewer holes and other secret entrances.
Is there any cataphiles watching this right now? It's a big world, but it's a small world. Almost every video I do about a certain place or something, there's usually somebody that comments and says, hey, I've been there, or hey, I live down the street, or something, which is really cool. Have you been here in the catacombs? I'm sure you have. Somebody has. Let me know. Let us all know.
And in some cases have left helpful navigation markers to guide one another around.
Cool.
Some of the tunnels actually have above-ground street names etched into the walls to prevent cataphiles and explorers from getting too turned around.
Nice.
Trespassers in blocked-off sections of the tunnels risk a $77 fine if they run into one.
Nowadays, though, I don't know, maybe you can't get a signal because you're underground, of course, but I would think maybe GPS location data and stuff would help out without getting, lost. Maybe they could do like a map, like a catacombs, map it out 3D, do like a map app on your phone for the catacombs. And then, of course, base it on GPS and have markers and directions, and kind of like a video game with an arrow that points where you're supposed to go,
One of the police units that routinely patrol underground. National Geographic UK estimates the community could number in the hundreds of thousands. The relatively open, porous nature of catacomb access has led to a number of unexpected and surprising discoveries over the years. Several artists, for example, have used the tunnels as particularly dramatic impromptu galleries for their work. One anonymous street artist, going by the name of No Bad, was profiled by the New York Times in 2014. He's decorated a number of the walls with paintings that glow in the dark. In 2004, police undergoing training exercises in the catacombs discovered a working movie theater down there, beneath the city's famed Palais de Chaillot. In addition to a giant cinema screen and projection equipment, the cops found theater seats and a collection of classic films, not to mention a fully stocked bar and restaurant.
Nice.
Obviously, the theater had working electricity to run the projector, but it also had 3 active phone lines. Authorities returned to the site a few days later to investigate further, only to find that it had been completely taken apart and removed.
Jeez.
The only remaining clue was a note reading, "Do not try and find us." Not all catacomb-themed events are quite so mysterious and obscure. The site has also hosted a number of unauthorized parties, raves, and events that attract widespread attention and numerous attendees, despite being technically illegal. Every Halloween, partygoers descend into the tunnels for a themed event known as Cataloween. Despite the ongoing popularity of these events, you're never still entirely safe wandering around unsupervised in a dark network of underground tunnels filled with skeletons.
That's crazy. Has anybody been to any of these events? That would be so cool.
In 2011, 3 friends got lost in the catacombs while partying and drinking together, and were found only after 48 hours of searches. In 2016, a 45-year-old man suffered a fatal cardiac episode during a catacomb party.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that kind of stuff. Like, you're down there in an underground, literally underground party, and medical emergencies could happen. Even if you're staying with the group, you're not getting lost, you're fine, you're with everybody. You're not even supposed to, nobody's supposed to be there in the first place. Medical emergencies could happen. How are you getting help? Or how is EMS getting in to get you? Oh man, that's just a whole big mess.
After descending a grand staircase into the catacombs themselves, visitors are first greeted by a small exhibition explaining their history and instructing anyone tall to watch out for occasional low ceilings.
That'd be
This
me.
anteroom is also filled with directional guides and other instructions that were etched onto the walls for the miners who once worked in the tunnels. The next room is known as the port-mahon corridor and features a number of sculptures that were originally constructed in secret by a quarry worker named François Descure between 1777 and 1782.
What?
Descure would work on the project between shifts at the mine and during lunch breaks, using the same tools he was employing for his mining job, and lighting the room with torches for better visibility. The corridor is named after the Port-Mahon fortress on the Spanish island of Majorca, which is depicted in one of Descure's designs. The artist was gravely injured during a cave-in while he was carving out a new stairway, which would have made his artwork more accessible from the street, and he never recovered. After exploring Descure's gallery, visitors then enter the ossuaries themselves, containing the skeletons of more than 6 million late Parisians. That's nearly 3 times the current living population of the city of Paris.
6 million. It goes from a couple 100,000 to 3 million. Now we're at 6 million. How many people's in there? Is there a clear answer here? And yeah, that's crazy. It said it was 3 times the population of like what actually lives in Paris now. Just ancient Parisians or whatever they're called, right?
Which tops out at around 2.2 million people. Visitors are greeted by a plaque that reads, "Stop. This is the Empire of Death." But, in French. After inspecting the bones, visitors climb 112 steps to leave the catacombs and return to street level. Naturally, this also involves exiting through a gift shop.
Of course.
During the World War II Nazi occupation of France, the catacombs provided Parisians with a handy hiding place. 2 doctors, named Jean Talleyrand.
I bet it's a great spot to hide if you was a Jewish person during World War II, for sure. If I was Jewish during World War II, my ass would be down in those catacombs. I don't care if I'm creeped out or not. I'd be sleeping right next to them skeletons.
And René Soutel began mapping the tunnels in 1938 and handed the work over to French resistance leader Henri Roll-Tanguy for use as storage or hideouts. The Grand Mosque of Paris also took advantage of its location, directly above an entrance into the tunnels, to serve as a hiding place for Jewish refugees fleeing the Nazi regime. Jews would wait in the catacombs until they could be provided with forged identity papers and routes out of the country. Some historians also have suggested that German occupiers may have also made use of the catacombs to travel around the city, but without the benefits of a handy map or a local guide. The tunnels have allowed for covert movement around the city during peacetime as well. In 2017, thieves burrowed through the wall of one of the tunnels to access a private wine cellar nearly 65 feet below the streets of Paris. More than 300 bottles of vintage Grand Cru wines were taken, at an estimated value of around 250,000 euros.
Jeez.
The future could theoretically hold even more surprising uses for the tunnel network beneath Paris. One Paris architectural firm, known as Fieldwork, has started experimenting with the catacombs as a source of geothermal energy due to their constant warm temperatures. Theoretically, they could be used to help regulate temperatures throughout the city, naturally keeping homes in the area cool during the summer and warm in the winter. So what do you think?
cool.
Would you explore the Paris?
Would you explore it? Have you explored it? Let me know down below. While you're down there, check out all those links. That'd be cool. You guys have a super fun, awesome day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. Bye.